Good evening. This is part 2 because I went on a tangent in the first one. My name is Sarah Luke, and this is for my Survey of American Literature part 2. So we're discussing the poem Paterson by William Carlos Williams. Haha, because that's like Otis. Try to keep my tangents to a minimum. If you're see my eyes shift, I have my phone propped up in front of my computer because I have my bullet points that I need to stay on track on my computer. The Paterson poem is very layered and very fragmented by putting in different narratives and also layering them in between with historical accuracies. I can't talk. And what I mean by historical accuracies, historical events being woven into to help ground the experience of what is going on. Since it contains multiple narratives, you asked us to discuss 3 of them, one specifically being the Sam Patch and Tim Crane, and so I'll be moving into them next. So let me scroll down a little bit. So in early of book 1, towards the beginning of the poem, when the falls are introduced, because they're really more of the central part to the poem than the actual town of Paterson, because the town of Paterson is built around the falls. Tim Crane and Sam Patch are doing jumps over the falls. Sam being, I'm assuming, a little more successful than Tim, because Tim attempts. I don't think it necessarily goes through with it or falls to his death. I can't remember at this point. It's the reason it's tied. It's because it's tied to the waterfalls as the definite setting and how it's introduced. Like, this is supposed to, like, the falls not the falls. This instance represents how there's going to be a theme of human force versus nature force, which we do see a lot of the time in very many poems and works of art, because because we're willing to risk things to try and prove our control over nature, when nature essentially has control over everything. All of our resources come from nature. The ones that we did not create ourselves with stuff we found in nature. Like, it's a thing. Essentially stating, like, the falls cannot be mastered. They can't, and they will not. And it gets pointed out multiple times in this narrative, and then in a narrative we will later on discuss. Because during the history of it, like during the history section, during the industrialization, we are trying to use the falls as a power source to have things, to use it as a hydroconductor, I think is what it is in my brain. I'm not for sure on that, but it's the wheel, and it makes from using that to charge electricity to go to the town or to run machines. So essentially, Paterson is being built around the falls, and then later on in their history, it'll be tried to be used as a way to, like, it'll be used for Paterson. And this connects because we're trying to have as I've said, like, we're trying to use the falls later after the Paterson is built around it. The second book is going to be, the second narrative, not second book, but it does take place in book 2 among the historical things because of how women are treated historically during this time, which is the female letter writer. The unknown female letter writer is trying to write a letter to Paterson, or I'm assuming from my brain, someone in Paterson, but I'm pretty sure it could go both ways, but depending on interpretation. So the tone, you can feel the tone shift because she starts talking about the inequality of the time, because women were not taken as seriously as writers as men were. It introduces another voice. It challenges the very male-centered narrative that we do see most poems have. It connects to the theme of language by reinforcing the multiple voices within one city, because we have, wherever you go, you're going to have multiple voices, and within one city, you can have the men who view everything one way, the women who view everything one way, the characters who are the minorities who view everything one way. This also expands the poem beyond geographically and gives it a more sense of identity and gender. Now we move on to the industrial / historical narrative that basically is layered in between everything. You can see it throughout books 1 2, 3, with the description of how the mills work and the workers and the competitions and the Native American history and everything of that. Like, the city is built on labor. The industry also does reshape nature itself by having the industrial era, like I said earlier, with the falls being used as a power source. This also has the history layer, history accumulating between each layer, because it adds on to the town. The connection is the links between the falls as a power source, and connects Sam Patch's ambition of going back to what he did try to prove he can beat the falls, he can control the falls by showing he can jump over it. And it also does show the tension between nature and the mechanization that we inevitably do as a society grow into. Which is how the poem very much is humans trying to control nature. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk. I know I didn't really end it very nicely, but I'm at like almost 8 minutes and 30 seconds, and have a nice night.